Good afternoon, and welcome back to What Matters Gulf Coast. This is July 3rd, the day before the 4th of July holiday. We have a very special guest today, and we're going to jump right into that. She's going to give us some history of the organization and where the name comes from. Plus, she's going to talk about her own personal history, which is extremely impressive. This organization is also involved in various charitable events, and she will touch on some of those as well. So, without any other delay, let's get into our show today. Today, we have Master Gunnery Sergeant Cynthia L. House, United States Marine Corps retired. The 2021 Veteran of the Year, a native of Mobile, Alabama, Cynthia was a 1971 graduate of Bishop Tulane Catholic High School for Girls. After a year at Dillard University, Cynthia joined the United States Marine Corps on a bet with her older brother, who said, "We're still in Vietnam. Women can't make it in the military, especially the Marine Corps." After spending several years in the Marine Corps, Cynthia began taking advantage of the educational extension centers abroad. Cynthia completed her education while on active duty, working towards earning her BBA in accounting from Northwood University. In 1998, Cynthia retired as a Master Gunnery Sergeant. Among her awards are the Meritorious Service Medal, the Navy Marine Corps Commendation Medal, the Navy Commendation Medal, the National Defense Service Medal with 1 star, and the Good Conduct Medal with 4 stars. After relocating back to Mobile, Alabama, Master Gunnery Sergeant House affiliated herself with the numerous civic and veterans organizations. She served on the board of directors for Crime Stoppers of Southwest Alabama. She was a member of the Mobile FBI National Citizens Academy Alumni Association, was previously selected as the Veteran of the Year for the Thomas Sullivan Community Center. She is the National Journal Director for the National Montford Point Marine Association. And for her efforts, dedication, and accomplishments, was the recipient of the Special President's Award and the association's Stemper Phi Award. On the local level, Master Gunnery Sergeant House is part of the executive staff of the Mobile Chapter 33. She's a member of the American Legion and is active in the Foster Harrington Detachment of the Marine Corps League, the Women's Marine Association, South Alabama Veterans Council, and the Mobile Bay Area Veterans Day Commission, where she is the commission's vice president in charge of the city's Veterans Day Honors Luncheon. She also conducts the Gold Star Memorial portion of Alabama's annual Blue Star Salute, which honors America's fallen heroes since the War on Terror. She received her Quilt of Valor. In November 2016, Master Gunnery Sergeant House was also the Chamber of Commerce's 2021 recipient of the J. Gary Cooper Community Service Award. I said in the beginning, this is a very special person, and she has a long list of accomplishments. So the next person you will hear will be our own, Mobile's own, Master Gunnery Sergeant House.
Oh, Mrs. V, thank you so much for that warm welcome. And you said way too many things because I've got to tell you, I'm excited about hearing some of those things because when I hear what I've done, I know that none of those things would have been accomplished without my having stood on somebody else's shoulders. And
Yes.
that's a little bit what I want to talk to you about today. I'm especially grateful that you guys afforded me an opportunity to talk today because I keep thinking tomorrow is July 4th.
Mhm.
Independence Day. And when I think about that particular history, I can't help but thinking that just a couple of months before we signed the Declaration of Independence in 1776, the Marine Corps was just being established.
Mhm.
That's critical for me at this point because the Montford Marines, the group that I'm going to talk to you about, they weren't established until 1942.
Mm.
And so every time I think about something historic, we just finished a variety of things during what we're going to call Military Appreciation Month. There are a number of events that we participate in, but the Montford Marines are a little known group. And I want to just sort of dig into that if you don't mind. So I'll go ahead.
Yes,
Um,
please. Mhm.
Basically, what it amounts to is, and I'll start like this because it kind of puts things in perspective. Everybody knows a little bit about who the, let's say, Buffalo Soldiers are.
Yes,
They know who the Tuskegee Airmen are.
yes.
The Montford Marines are that for the Marine Corps. We don't have horses, we don't have airplanes, but we've got that true grit and determination that makes a Marine a Marine.
Mhm.
But back in World War II, African Americans were not allowed, and I'm going to use that term, allowed. They were not permitted to join the Marine Corps. And it literally took a presidential order in 1941 to disavow segregation in the military, if you will. So the services had to integrate. Everybody did it but the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps was adamant about not having African Americans within their ranks. They were forced to do so. And basically, I think it was 1942, they started recruiting toward having African Americans. Now, imagine going on a job and you're going to end up working for somebody who says he'd rather have 5,000 whites than 250,000 African Americans in that corps.
Mm.
Probably not a good thing to want to do.
Mhm.
But we had some dedicated individuals that we now refer to as our heroes, our trailblazers, who decided that they would take this on, and they did, except that they were not permitted to train in the normal boot camp places. Parris Island, South Carolina, everybody's heard of that. San Diego, everybody's seen Gomer Pyle on TV with that little Marine Corps logo. They couldn't go there. They were actually trained at a separate boot camp called Montford Point, outside the gates of Camp Lejeune. And that's pretty much where the name came from.
Mhm.
But the story goes a little bit deeper. Imagine going to boot camp and thinking you're about to start your training. Not these guys. They literally had to build their own training facilities. And
Mhm.
so don't want to go into the depths of all of that right now. This is probably not the time or place, but I want you to understand the group of men that we're talking about. I personally could never have been a Montford Marine because they were only recruiting to men. So the reason this is important for us is that the sole purpose of our organization is to honor and support the legacy of those that made it possible for us to join the Marine Corps.
Mhm.
I'm proud, and I kind of like to show that off a little bit. One of the reasons is that, when you think about it, and some of us remember a time when, when young men would get into trouble and they'd go to court and the judges would go, well, you know what, if you go into the Army, if you go into this, then, we're going to commute your service. I mean, commute your trial time, so you won't have to do anything. Not so with the Marine Corps. These individuals struggled very, very, very hard and did a number of different things to make sure that they were seen as good as, no, let me take that back, better than the rest, because that's what they were going to have to do in order to be considered a Marine. For us here, and I'll tell you a little bit, and this is part of why this is important for me to talk to you guys today. Those Marines, not only did they go through a lot, but they had to deal with all of the kinds of discriminations. Remember, there were a lot of civil rights issues going on at the same time. They weren't even allowed to vote. When you think about all of these things, but all they wanted to do is serve for their country, fight for their country. And they were actually fighting for the right to do that. There are now books being written about the stories. Many of them have written some themselves. But I say that to say that their story is pretty much untold at this point. And what we do is make sure that they're acknowledged. Now, here's the juicy part. When you think about the stories, and when we finally started looking at the history of those that made it possible for others to follow in their footsteps, it took one President, Barack Obama, to hear the story. And ended up in 2011, through an act of Congress, the Montford Marines, those individuals that the Marine Corps did not want, were honored with the Congressional Gold Medal for heroism, for all of the acts that they did in spite of all of the discrimination that they encountered. At the time, and basically they started receiving the award right around 2012. At the time, the word didn't get out enough. So there are a number of people that we're still looking for. When we go back and look at the story, it turns out that it took another president, Truman, back in 1948, who really had to prohibit, again, by another presidential order, racial segregation within the Marine Corps. And so by this time, they closed down Camp Montford Point. And now the Marines were eligible to train at the regular boot camp sites, Parris Island and San Diego. But because of that, when they started to become dispersed, it's kind of difficult to pick up on all of the things that were going on. But the story was still out there, and the story still needed to be told. And it was through that group of young men who shared an adversity back in '65, who came up with just a meeting spot in Philadelphia, just to hang out and talk about all the stuff they went through, that began the National Montford Marine Association. And it was through that mechanism that stories continued to get told. And that's how we come to where we are. We look at the numbers and see that approximately 20,000 African Americans actually went through Camp Montford Point. And each and every one of those individuals are entitled to receive that Congressional Gold Medal. Guess what? We probably have records for about, 1,900 of them, maybe 2,000. So you're talking about only about 10% of them right now have received that Congressional Gold Medal. And one of the reasons why we tell the story, and I know that I'm not telling the story, but I like to bring this point up before we forget anything else. We're still looking for those individuals.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't realize is that part of getting the Congressional Gold Medal involved a number of other types of events that would honor those individuals. In fact, at the very same site that nobody wanted to see them at, right there, right outside of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, is a tremendous memorial to the Marines of Montford Point. About a $2,000 project that we did. And because we don't have all the names, there's a wall behind the actual monument, or that makes up part of the monument, that has stars on it. And each star is to represent the name of an individual who was trained at Camp Montford Point, our Montford Pointers. And what we've been trying to do is we're still looking for them. Everywhere we go, we like to talk about those Marines who were trained in the Marine Corps from 1942 to 1949. We want to know about you. We want to hear your story. And assuming that we've got the documentation to support that period of service, those individuals will still be able to receive the Congressional Gold Medal. Now, when you think about it, you hear the times that I'm talking about, you know that they're not youngsters anymore.
Yeah.
Most original Montford pointers are between early 90s, a little over 100, and so forth. We still have a few right living, and they're still in the organization, but many of them have passed on. And that doesn't mean that the family members or anybody are out of luck, because we still need to track those individuals. They deserve to know that we consider them heroes. And
Yes.
so when family members reach out to us with the documentation, we're going to hold a Congressional Gold Medal ceremony and honor that individual. And in fact, we did one early January. A family reached out to us. They're right here in Mobile. And because COVID was still, a little bit active, we were able to go to their home and do a ceremony outside where he was honored. The family received that Congressional Gold Medal in his honor. And that's pretty much what we're looking to do. We still want to be able to do that. And so this platform is great for us. We're going to talk about a little bit about the Montford Point Marines, but I definitely wanted to get that on the record right now, that we're still looking for any African Americans that were in the Marine Corps between 1942 and 1949. We want to get that history.
Okay. Right. Wonderful, wonderful that you guys are still searching for them too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, very good.
Absolutely.
Okay, you're going to tell us some more about some of the activities you're involved in and a little bit about your history too.
Yes, well, there are a number of veterans service organizations throughout this area. And so we're not interested in, competing with the same veterans over that. So we're more in a support role to not only some of the veterans organizations, but to some of their civilian counterparts. We assist, or you'll find us in support roles dealing with, say, Toys for Tots. That's pretty obvious because when you think of Marines, you think of Toys for Tots around Christmas times, or we've assisted other groups when we're dealing with homeless events or and a few of them are just dropping off my mind right now, but we primarily are catering to, we're finding our own little niche. We're interested in providing leadership opportunities, mentorship programs for the youth. We've got a couple of programs that we're working on right now. We're still working with Strickland Youth Center to get some things off the ground. We're looking to start a Young Marines program. We find that is very important. And part of the reason is that when we think about the original Montford Pointers, these people were actively engaged in their communities. Yes. And this is one way that we get to give a little bit back. One of the things I'm personally most proud of is the fact that we've been able to maintain a scholarship program. Are we giving away $50,000? No, but we managed to get into the school system and just offer those smaller scholarships for the students who are struggling and trying to get in. Part of the way that and this is something that we do, and I'll say this in Mobile County, and we do reach out to all of the schools, but I just want to bring it up and make sure that your listeners are aware of that, because it's surprising how many people don't even know about the scholarships.
Yes.
We show them off a little bit, because one of the things we do is talk to them or have them write an essay about the original Montford Pointers, of how they can compare their struggle, what they're trying to do with the history of those Montford Point Marines. So that is a biggie for us.
Okay.
Some of the other things with the association itself, or our chapter itself, participates in, like I said, a number of veterans events. You'll see us right there on Memorial Day. We get to pull the colors at the cemeteries. Armed Forces Day is a big one for us. We're out there at the Battleship Park, participating in Armed Forces Day, anything that deals with veterans, because we're all vets. And frankly, most of our members are actually members of other groups. And I say that because, we're all kind of in this together, and most veterans know that. But the only thing that's a little bit different about us is that we're going to share a little bit of our time with those who are interested in learning about those who came before us. For me, and you mentioned Veteran of the Year. To be honest with you, I got to admit I was a little bit not embarrassed by that, but that was not easy for me to accept, because most veterans, and Frank, anybody that's in community service, you're not doing anything for the war. You do it because you feel compelled to do so. There's a need, and you feel that you have the talent, the time, the energy, the whatever, to go in there and make a difference. And that's all I've been doing. For me, it was a little bit different, because were it not for the fact that I was able to retire from the Marine Corps, I would not have been able to come home and take care of my parents. That was a big deal for me. I had not been in Mobile since 1971.
Yeah.
But I came here, and after they passed, the only thing that felt natural to me was giving back to the veteran community. And I'll share something else with you. I'm almost embarrassed to say that I did not know a lot about the Montford Point Marines. I kind of thought it was a Black organization. I thought it was just the Black Marines getting together. And that is absolutely not what it's about.
Okay.
It's about us honoring those that came before us, those that set the tone, those that set the stage, those that made it possible, kind of like our ancestors, when we have that family reunion kind of thing. I look at it in that vein, I guess, because that's what they are to me. And we're fortunate to have two living Montford Pointers still a part of our chapter.
Yeah. Very much so. Very much.
Yeah.
A lot of rich history. Of course, I've kind of been involved with you with the Toys for Tots for your organization for a good while. But this is the first time, except for back in April when we did the voter registration, got a little bit of history about the Montford Point Marines.
Yes.
So this is a wonderful opportunity. Good history. And have you guys thought about maybe putting a book together, something that could be passed on to the younger generation?
Well, here's where we are with that. Let's go back. Okay, two things. First of all, the National Association is working with, and I'm just going to use this word loosely, with Hollywood or whoever does movies, but they're actually in the process of making a movie called Black Boots. They've been working on this for a couple of years now, and that's still in the work, and that is going to happen. But we do a couple of things. So once a year, we actually have, and if you guys know any Marines, you know that we are celebrating our birthday on November 10th. We are going to make that happen. So it's always around Veterans Day, and it works out fine. So each year for our Marine Corps birthday, we actually hold a Marine Corps birthday ball. We acknowledge and honor the regular day for the Marine Corps, which is November 10th. But our ball has a little bit of a twist to it. And what we do is we honor all of the Montford Pointers, but specifically those that have been a part of our chapter. And I say that to say part of the history that we're building deals with the stories that we get. Each individual that we provide the Congressional Gold Medal to, there's a little bit of a story about them in our banquet booklet that we put out.
Oh, good.
And so we've been compiling that. Right now we've got, and I should have checked this before we started talking, I want to say maybe about 15 that we've actually honored within our chapter since I've been a part of it, and since 2012. And so we continue to do that, and we're compiling all of that data. And most of it actually resides on our national website. So to answer your question, yeah, we're doing some things, but another part is that there's so many streams of information that come into us. We're looking at a number of other ways that we can tell, because I know I can't do it all today. You get like a little bit of an overview, and then it seems like another time we may hit on a particular topic. But a couple of things are going on. We've got, as I may have mentioned earlier, there are some original Montford Pointers who have written books on their own.
Yes.
And what I like about them, and when I mentioned before that story is pretty much untold, you had to live it in order to tell the story.
Yes.
And so only since 2012 has there been any true interest in what these guys did. And so you're talking about people, we're not talking about scraping the bottom of the barrel. These have been ambassadors. governors. There's been mayors. One of the mayors of New York City. When you think about what educators, doctors, I call them doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs. I know you're not supposed to say that.
Yeah.
Well-educated men who represent well. Those stories we're still missing. We know what they've done a little bit, but we don't know the in-depth story. We don't hear, except periodically, how they were treated, or how people would say, you can't possibly be a Marine, and then you get beat up, because
Yeah.
it parallels with some of the stories that other African Americans have dealt with just by the color of their skin.
Yeah.
And so the difference is that when you think of somebody fighting for the country and they're being held to a certain standard, they're also being bullied and talked about and manhandled for the same reasons.
Mm.
And so, yeah, so we're doing that, but we've got a couple of other things that we're working on locally, small things,
Yes.
small to others, but a thing like even having streets named
Mhm.
pointers. We need to have a better and bigger presence at the battleship, for example.
Yes.
You'll see things about the Korean War veterans, the Vietnam veterans, the Marines, etc. But this particular group, this unique group, needs to be identified in some way. And as I said, it's more than I can get into in a way that makes sense here, but some of that story can begin to be told. Let me tell you something that's kind of odd, and which is another reason why I appreciate you giving us the opportunity. Do you realize our chapter actually chartered in 2006? 2006. We have been around Mobile, Alabama. Mobile, Alabama. We're the only chapter in the state of Alabama.
Oh.
And not many people know who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you something else. I like to brag a little bit about that history. There's some well-known Marines in the area, and I know you know some, General Gary Cooper.
Yes.
Many people know Major Walt Dickerson, and then some others
Yes.
that have done some things that are pretty popular. But we want to talk a little bit about Marine Corps history. And some of the most well-known African Americans within the Marine Corps are right here from the state of Alabama.
Mm.
Two sergeants major, they ended up being brothers-in-law. Sergeant Major Gilbert Hashmark Johnson, his brother-in-law, Sergeant Major Huff. Now, here's the interesting thing. The only base in the Marine Corps named after an African American, in fact, I think is the only base, period, named after an African American, was named after Sergeant Major Johnson.
Oh.
And that's that same base, Montford Point, again, where they didn't want them. And so I'm kind of proud to talk about that a little bit. He was from Mount Hebron, Alabama. And we just need to bring him up a little bit, because it was he who actually, in my mind, made the original Montford Pointers who they were. If you think about this, and I'll backtrack a little bit, the Montford Point Marines were initially trained by white Marines. And when they selected these guys, they picked some that, let me see how you phrase it, that were from the South, because they felt that they knew how to handle the Negroes.
Yes.
And at a time, the deal was, hey, let's see if we can get some African Americans to train themselves. And so the African Americans were happy about this, because there's no way in the world that anybody could be as hard on them as the white Marines were. Well, guess what? They went for a rude awakening. Because Sergeant Major Huff, Sergeant Major Johnson did not play. These are big, tall, burly guys, and they knew that you couldn't just stand tall, stand straight. You had to do extra. You had to be more.
Yes.
And they were harder on them than anybody else, because you had to be. You had to be. In order, and then as it turns out, and now, it's commonplace, when I look at somebody even like General Cooper, who we're also tremendously proud of, he got a little bit of training through that, but he's worked alongside, and he continues to pass that down to the rest of us. We know how we're supposed to act. We know how we're supposed to walk and talk, because, not everybody can be a Marine. We talk about that. Yeah, you might think we're brainwashed, but the reality is, that's what it takes. You've got to have disciplined people in order to go to war. And that's primarily why we joined.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a few things in the making that we really don't want to talk about right now, but our focus at this point, something that we can actually put our hands on, is pretty much just dealing with the youth.
Okay, great. And that is a wonderful entree for a couple of questions.
Sure.
First of all, let me get this out of the way. Am I understanding this correctly when you said the Marine, or did you not say the Marine Corps was the last armed service unit to be integrated?
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what I said.
And that's the one that happened back in the 40s, the early 40s?
Yes, yes, yes. And I'll say, and I keep thinking about that. We remember his name, Major General, I think it was Major General Holcomb, who said, I would rather have 5,000 whites in my Marine Corps of only 5,000 whites, than to have 250,000 Negroes.
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing about that, and they write about this, and then the follow up to that ends up being something like, these were some of the best fighting units anyone
Yeah.
could ever think of.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes. I yes, I thought that was what I had heard.
yes.
And you would think when it was approved by Congress or President or
Mhm.
whomever, all of the armed forces units would have been integrated all at the same time, but it didn't
Yes,
really happen that way.
yes, exactly, exactly,
Mm.
exactly. And I'll add to that, it's interesting. In fact, last year I kind of mentioned this. I didn't think about it until I started, thought about the role that I was playing. The women Marines dealt with the same thing and still do.
Mhm.
A military, if you will, that doesn't really want you. You're going to be inferior. You're not going to be looked upon as equal in any capacity. And so I've always equated that, because last year when I thought about it, I realized that they, at the same time that Congress authorized a women reserve corps for the Marines, that's the same time that they started permitting African Americans to join the Corps. And actually, they did the women beforehand. And so, even if I were born back then, I would not have been able to join the Marine Corps, because they weren't even accepting African Americans.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
so the women came on at the same time
Oh,
or
at
a
the same
little
time,
later?
yes, yes, a little
Oh,
at the same time. But they had a reserve corps at the
yes.
time.
Uh-huh.
There had been one or two that came on active duty, but when you talk about the masses, yes, just a few months prior to that, yes.
Yes, yes. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the youth. You mentioned something about a mentorship program. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes. Okay. So two things. One, we've always wanted to and could not find ourselves in a position to do it, and now we've got the manpower to start working on it. A lot of people are familiar with the Young Marine program. Um, we have not started where other areas have, but we needed to do that here. And one of the reasons we didn't start it earlier, and you've been around long enough to know, there are a number of groups that are trying to get into mentorship programs for youth.
Mhm.
And so for us, we had to really find that niche that only works for us. The closest thing to what we have in mind to do would be something with the Boy Scouts, for example, because we're talking about young Marines teaching some leadership principles and traits. And this will be for both male and female. So that's something that we're in the process of trying to pull together. We had actually already started working with Strickland Youth Center, but
Mhm.
COVID kind of put the brakes on that. And so that's still being held in advance. We've got some programs going on, and I guess I'm reluctant to do that. I'm not actually in charge of that program per se. I do know that what we're working on, to kind of get those started. And once we do that, we're just going to have to put that information out there and start recruiting. I use the word recruiting, but start drawing in or recruiting young men and young women for those programs.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
but what we do now, different organizations will reach out to us, and just ask us to come in and like talk to their youth.
Yes,
We do a little bit of that. We've got one coming up Friday, and you've got to know that it completely slipped my mind the name of that group.
yes,
Um, but they have a summer program for youth, and again, we'll be talking about leadership principles and traits. This is primarily for young men, so we put ourselves out there so that groups know that we're available to do those kinds of things. They
yes.
can be short-term programs, they can be long.
Mhm.
Like this one, I think is a summer program, and we'll only do like a day or so of that. But it depends on the program itself. For
Yes.
example, the one with Strickland will be a continuous program that we would do on a routine basis. We're just not able to get in there just yet.
Okay. Okay. Great. great. Because Strickland with Judge Namath,
Yes.
he's
Yeah.
really doing some innovative
Oh,
programs.
absolutely. Yes.
He's
Yes.
trying his best to save as many youth instead of just locking them up and throwing away the key,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
So that's good to hear. Glad to
And
hear
yeah,
that.
we really appreciate that. Yes. Yes.
Yes, yes. And you guys would be excellent role models for those students over there with Strickland, because a lot of times that may be missing. Or
Exactly. And it's hard to do. I know sometimes, like hard to reach, but pretty much what you're saying, if you just come in as yourself, they know that you're interested. A lot of times when they just look at us, I know it comes off a certain way. I know you have to soften up a little bit,
yes, yes.
recognizing that. But what I've learned is that I'm learning as much from them as
Mhm.
we seem to be giving out. I was one. Now, don't you tell anybody I told you this, but I never had any children. And
Yes,
so I wasn't, my children were younger Marines under me. So it's a little bit
exactly.
different. But in today's world, what they're having to see, what they're having to deal with, my perspective may be a little bit different because of my background. So in order for us to meet in the middle and make sure that we're moving along the right path, then I feel that I'm learning as much from them as to how we're going to get there, primarily by listening.
Exactly.
And again, leading by example. That's our biggest thing, because that's something. It's one of the things that we're taught as we're going through basic training and through our careers in the military. So I'm
Yes.
excited about actually finally getting something going as things start to open up a little bit for us.
That's great. That's good to hear, because I mean there really are some good kids over there. I'm pretty familiar with, of course, Judge Namath and
Right.
that Nest program that he has. So I know that there's desperately a need there for that. And you know what it means when you see a person who looks like you in that kind of a role, in a leadership
Yes.
role. And that
Yes.
person is coming to talk to us about what we can do and how much we can accomplish. So it
Yes.
really goes over well. It does. Talk to me a little bit. My sorority also does scholarships, as well as I'm a retired educator, as well as our retired educators group. So talk to me a little bit about your scholarship program.
Um, Pretty simple. Um, the basic. Let me go back a little bit. What we learned, your A and B students, they're going to get scholarships all over the place. We know that. And so our primary purpose of doing the scholarships, we want to provide the money, but our really sole purpose is just putting the information out there about the Montford Marines. And so there are a couple of things that go on. We have a national scholarship as well. And what we've been trying to do, get the information within the school system. Hey, we're offering scholarship, and they're smaller ones, about $1,000. Sometimes they're $1,500, but around that. And we typically, I think the last time we gave out about 5 scholarships. And that whole deal is just, hey, talk to me. I want to share the story of the Montford Marines with you, because we're hoping that they're learning something about those men, because we keep wanting to call them the old folks, but
Yeah.
The type of men they were. If they learn a little bit about that, and then of course, we're looking at some academics, but we sort of set it up so that it's not academically driven. We're looking for well-rounded students, those that have some they're doing community service, involvement in the school other than, just the classroom work, those kinds of things, those that exemplify certain types of leadership qualities. We're looking at that well-rounded picture of a student. And like I said, it doesn't have to be AB, because you can get points just for doing a number of other things, and just provide that. And these are monies that go directly into the hands of the students. It's not, we don't actually send it to the school. I mean, the students get it. I remember when my niece was going to school, and she made it book money then. And so doing the scholarships the way we do that, it happens. But we normally put that out around the first of the year. We'll get the applications out there. And the other thing we do to show them off, we actually have a scholarship program. The last program we had was at the downtown library. I liked it best because, in addition to just the program to get them on stage to show them off a little bit, we always have the ROTC come and do colors for us. But this particular year, we were able to do our refreshments from one of the academy schools.
Oh,
And
okay.
and we had not done that before. So Williamson, I'll call names, provided the refreshments. And that was important for us too, because they don't necessarily need to be enrolling in a 4-year school. They can be enrolling in a vocational program.
Oh, that's great.
And it was important for us to talk about that because, not everybody needs a college degree to do what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we needed to show the importance of some of these vocational programs
Yes.
that would kind of get people going the right way. So we were pretty excited about that, and it came off really well. And chances are we're going to be doing the same thing next year. And now that you're asking me these questions, I'm going to put like a little note. So I'll remember to ask you to kind of put some information out there for us next time so that we'll have more recipients, that we'll have more people applying for those scholarships.
We will be glad, more than happy to help you in any way that
Thank you.
we can. Now, am I understanding you to say that they don't necessarily have to be an A honor roll student or a B honor
No,
roll
no,
student?
no,
They can
no.
be a good, strong, maybe C students, but they've got these other things. They've got
Yeah,
the
exactly,
community.
exactly, exactly,
Okay, good. That's good.
exactly.
Great to know. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and this is just a sidebar, we give our retired educators, we actually give out 3 scholarships, and they're generally anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500. So
Hmm.
you guys are batting 100, okay,
Thank you.
when you are giving out that kind of money. And the same thing for our sorority. Now the sorority is able to give. I think they give up to 2,000. But you're in that ballpark. You're definitely in that ballpark.
Well, Frank,
And
we're proud of it because, we're a 501c3. And so, we're nickel and diming to pull these monies together. But we actually partner with National to pull this off. They have a fundraiser. And sometimes I get a little embarrassed to call it what it is, but it's called a Queen Contest.
mhm,
And we call it that because it started again with the original Montford Pointers. And this was a way to we have a contest. So all of the chapters within the association, there are 44 of them. Um, Many of them will just have somebody to help them raise money. So we sell these raffle tickets.
yes.
That is a challenge. And so I think the first couple of years we gave 2 scholarships, each was 500. And then the next year I think we did 3. We did a 1,000 and then 2 500.
Good.
And we've just been grinning because we've been able to maintain that. And so when you're selling nothing but raffle tickets to make this happen, it's
Yes.
pretty good. But here's the other thing, that the queen or the person who does that gets to compete nationally. So we have a queen every year. And then we introduce that person at our ball each year
Mhm.
because that's the only way and again, because a lot of people don't know who we are. So when they attend our ball, they're going to see a couple of things. They're going to learn about some Montford Point Marines. They may see a Congressional Gold Medal ceremony. And then we will introduce the one person in this area who helped us to raise those monies.
Oh,
And I don't know if I'm out of line in saying this, but our last 3 queens, I think, were also well, one is a current educator.
mhm.
Yeah, no, the last 2 are educators. The last one, I think the last one was not, but they're all in that field, so they get it. They understand. One is a retired educator.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
And so this one, I won't name her sorority. I was hoping to kind of get her sorority involved,
Mhm.
um, but she's doing an outstanding job. And when they go national, I'm hoping that we can finally get somebody from Mobile to represent national for this, because we get those people who understand. And what we do to the audience, we kind of let them know. And then we, of course, when you talk about the history of what we're doing, as we talk about what the chapter does, that same magazine that we put out once a year that's got the original Montford Pointers in it, we
Yeah.
also put the name of the scholarship recipients, show
Oh,
them a little bit,
yeah.
their photos would be there. Not necessarily a bio, but, where they're going to school, what their majors
Yes.
are. Um,
Yes.
because we need everybody to know, and hopefully we'll be able to. I don't necessarily think we need to do a larger amount, but I would like to see more students receive those.
Yes. Yes. Very. Very good. Very good. Now, and am I to understand that they do not necessarily have to be going into the military, or is that a requirement?
That is not the requirement at all.
Oh,
Um, yeah, it's not the requirement. These are students going to college or vocational programs. The
oh,
only reason we mention now, here's what we do, because we want everybody to be able to qualify for that. So they will act. There are points assigned for those who, let's say, had some ROTC time.
yes, yes,
Those in any of it, and we do that um, because that's going to qualify everybody, because we know that most public schools anyway require at least 1 year of ROTC, I believe.
yes.
If their parents were in the military, that kind of gives them some more points.
Okay.
So that has to be that affiliation. We need to do that in order to
Yes,
qualify, because we're 501c3. So it's
exactly.
that military affiliation that way. But we're looking at your record,
Yes.
how you scored on your ACTs or whatever. And
Mhm.
again, you don't have to be the top of the line on that. But if you're also a person that's doing a tremendous amount of volunteer work, et cetera, you're active in your church, for example,
Yes.
those kinds of things that we look at and assign points to that will give us that well-rounded student. And some of the biggest points will come from their essay on the Montford Point Marines.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. Now that really has been an education for me. Both both of those points, the scholarship and the mentorship. And I am so glad to know that this has been one of my pet peeves, is that generally when we award scholarships, we tend to award them to the A honor roll or the B honor roll. And as you
Yes,
have said, in 9 times out of 10, they will get flooded with offers, with scholarship offers. So
yeah,
it's good to see that you will go after that other student who can be just as valuable to the world as those A and B students.
yes, yes, yes.
Well, we certainly have learned a lot about the Montford Point Marines and from you too, Master Gunnery House. And we have enjoyed you. You are very, very knowledgeable about your organization and very passionate about it. We can hear the passion in your voice.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I do. I've got to tell you, if you ever sit down and talk to an original Montford Pointer, your world just changes.
Yes,
We did and I'll get off. We did a road trip a couple of months ago to an original that they had assigned to our chapter. We didn't even know he existed. He has been inducted into the Negro Baseball Hall of Fame,
ah, okay.
and we're hoping to have him here in November.
Uh-huh.
Um, but again, and we have another Montford Pointer that's a part of our chapter, and I laugh because he lives. I think it's in Evergreen. It's Evergreen, and
Yes.
his daughter is always laughing like I don't know when Dad's going to show up here. He just shows up. So he's 90 something years old,
Oh my
and I'm
goodness.
embarrassed to admit this guy gets around better than I do.
Yes.
Mind is sharp, but I'm so proud of him because I keep saying, were it not for him, you always talk about the first person to do this and the first person to do this, the
Yes.
first person, and I'm proud of the fact. I'm proud of the fact that I was the first female veteran of the year. But here's the deal: when you're the first, that means that there was also a last. The
Yes.
last time we're going to look at something a certain way, and
Yes.
so these first people just make sure that we know it's all possible.
Yes.
You don't have
Yes.
to give up. And so I do get excited about that. And I'm looking to do so much more. And I know it seems like I've been all over the place with this, but there's so many ways that we could talk about them. We could talk about one ounce of what they do in one segment. So
Yes.
thank you for that opportunity. I really, really, really appreciate it.
You're most welcome. And we want to say this to you. Yes, we would like to have you back again, maybe in another couple of months, or when you get closer to one of those projects that you're
Yes.
working on and you're at a point where you really can talk about it, or after the project is
Would
over.
be happy to. Yes. Would be
Yes,
happy.
and you want to talk to us. The other thing is too, when you're having a special event, we also go out on site and we can actually do some filming from the actual site, and we can put that
Oh,
on our Facebook page and our YouTube page. So when you're doing
okay.
something like that, please pass the word on And if it's any way possible, especially if we get it in advance, we can fit it into our schedule. And
Right.
we would love to come and do an actual site visit and
We
do
would be
some video.
happy to do that. Thank you so much for that offer. Thank you.
Yes, very, very much so. And we want to thank you again. You have taught us an awful lot in this short time that you've been on the air with us. And we will look forward to hearing more from the Montford Point Marine Association.
Chapter 33, yes. Yes.
Chapter 33. Thank you again. And we
You are
welcome you
absolutely
back anytime you are ready to come back. Just let us know.
We appreciate that, and thanks again. You have a good evening.
And ladies and gentlemen, this ends our show. I want you to really pay close attention to everything that's gone on today. We've learned a lot of history. We've learned a lot of military history. And we have learned how important our people were in the making of that history. So let us pay close attention to the information that was given out today, and let us take heed. This is a wonderful organization that our team, just recently found out about. But we are so, so glad to have it. And as I said before, we will definitely get them back at a later date. And of course, if they're doing a special event, we can always go on site and do some videotaping there and place it on our two mediums. So I want to thank you for joining us again. We had a wonderful show today, and we will see you next Sunday, same time, same place. Join us again next Sunday at the 4 p.m. time. Go and have a very wonderful and safe 4th of July holiday. And thank you for joining us.